everybody to Wall Street Reporter's Discovery Day live stream for today, October 15th, 2020. We have with us a debut presentation from Visibility Groupe Technologies. Stock symbol is VSBY on the CSE, VSBGF over the counter. CEO is Jay. This company has got some exciting things happening. I'm actually looking forward to seeing this video we're going to see on screen in just a second. Jay, before you play the video, I just want you to know that our audience, they're looking for stocks that have that 10x to 100x upside. So after you play this video, I'm going to ask you some questions, and we'll open it up for the audience so they can decide for themselves if VSBY is going to be that next 10 bagger. With that said, let's watch this video. This is going to be exciting.
Wonderful. Here it goes.
World of out-of-home is being transformed. Today, it's dynamic and digital. More than an animated sign, a creative ad, or a head-turning spectacular, digital signage with the right software can become an invaluable analytics tool. That's where visibility comes in. Visibility's SaaS software and optics empower digital display to make it smarter, with the ability to recognize who is looking at its message, interacting with them, and engaging by the brands that play on them. And all this happens in real time. Visibility takes passive digital signage and makes it proactive. Now, with proactive digital displays, Visibility provides more actionable intelligence than ever before. Visibility software has proprietary facial analytics that reveal viewer demographic profiles, including age and gender, mood state, as well as interactivity, length of engagement, number of impressions, and even the percentage of people looking at the sign. In addition to enhancing the customer experience, the brand's presence, and measuring purchase patterns, digital signage can now help aid in public safety with Visibility Vector. With this advanced software, digital place-based signage equipped with Visibility software can view crowded public venues, identifying persons of interest by cross-referencing law enforcement and watch list databases. In seconds, Vector will notify security to mobilize, intercept, and prevent possible tragic events from happening. This enhancement to current security and surveillance programs make Vector an invaluable tool in the war against terror. And coming in our next software release, with advanced object recognition and machine learning, we can identify objects, including weapons, that pose a potential threat to any venue. This makes Visibility Vector the perfect addition to new or existing digital signage being deployed in all retail and out-of-home applications. An enhancement to security in airports, transit hubs, public squares, sports stadiums, schools, and university campuses, making the future of digital place-based media smarter and more dynamic and ubiquitous than ever before.
Okay, so yes, Jay, that's pretty interesting. So, kind of what I see here. I mean, I'm kind of want to understand the thing a little bit better, but it seems to me that it's like there's a lot of like pull and push factors working in your favor. In other words, are you essentially an ad? I mean, part of it is an ad tech thing you have. Then you have the security aspect. You have a bunch of aspects. They're all kind of working in synergies, which could bring a lot of sales to you. So
Ad tech is a component of it, but really, if you talk about the core engine of what we do, it's artificial intelligence. It's computer vision. It's a derivation on the same technology that it's used to inspire autonomous vehicles. We teach cameras how to interpret what they see. We're not doing this for this broad spectrum of artificial intelligence. We're doing this for two narrow markets, retail and security. What matters in retail is I want to measure the customer journey. I want to count how many women are in the facility, how many men, and where the men go. Do they go to deli, liquor, bakery, and then they leave? All of that data compiled together for retailers to understand and optimize, and for brands to understand and optimize. Think PepsiCo or Coca-Cola, and how valuable it would be for them to know exactly how people are interacting with their brand in retail. Exactly, no inference, no guesswork, exactly what's happening. And on the security side, you got 20,000 bad guys in Mexico City that are wanted for active violent warrants. We use our camera network to find them non-consensually in public spaces. So when our cameras see them, we alert on them, and law enforcement gets involved. Or if there's a weapon that's brandished in a public square, we not only identify that weapon, this is a weapon, but characterize that weapon. This is a long gun, this is a revolver, this is an AK-47. So, and all this brought to us by artificial intelligence and the computer vision applications of artificial intelligence.
Okay, no, it's very interesting. I guess kind of what I find interesting is that you're kind of it's like a one solution that kind of solves multiple problems, and it has multiple kind of hot buttons which make
Sure.
you know, for example, like you can install this in the airport, you know, typical. Okay, so you have an airport,
in airports. Yeah.
you have an airport installation where this is like a perfect thing, or a stadium, whatever it is. So you have this, you know, incredible LED sign. You got this great signage, and you have the ads going. You have the and they can target exactly the audience that they need, so they could draw. They see, you know, let's say a guy, they direct them to, I don't know, whatever, the deli, the bar. They see a woman, they direct, whatever it is, yeah. So and then at the same time, you have the security aspect, which really is very important. So you have two kind of things working together, which you know, I find interesting. But in a nutshell, okay, so I kind of wanted people to see that video first so they can understand.
Yeah.
Explain in a nutshell, what is VSBY all about? What's the business model?
Our business model is software as a service. We look to endpoints. An endpoint to us is a camera in retail or a camera at shelf. If you're looking for that Coca-Cola analogy, if Coca-Cola wants to monitor and measure how people are engaging with their brand, we place camera at shelf in conjunction with display. That's an endpoint. That's one endpoint. Recent deployment we did with a very large national drugstore chain, we would deploy multiple endpoints in a single store. Each of those are measured or licensed by endpoint. Software as a service, so much a month. On the security side of the business, we license per camera. So if a camera is equipped to run algorithms for counting cars, counting people, looking for persons of interest, those are 3 different modules licensed independently to create a software as a service model for us. So for us, it's all about being inside that engine that drives other capabilities.
Okay, so it's very, very interesting. You know, so I think, you know, the world is going to start opening up with, you know, retail, stadiums. Things are going to come back to normal very shortly in the U.S., worldwide. And I think, you know, one of the issues, you know, for like a retail is, and the reason why I think, you know, e-commerce has kind of eaten the lunch is, you have with e-commerce online, you have the opportunity for analytics. So, you know, brands can drive, you know, ads to, you know, and they can see what's happening. They can. So I think this kind of, what your technology kind of it gives you know, a very powerful tool to brands or to retailers to basically increase revenue in a substantial way. So that's
it's an excellent observation, Jack, because if you look at the development and the monetization of the internet, it's been principally inspired by this idea of measurability. If I can package persons into profiles, I can market to those persons. I can target to the 40 to 50-year-olds in Manhattan, for example. And we didn't have that in bricks and mortar. We had no equivalent for that. And so once you introduce computer vision, you now provide the ability to measure the audience and create for the same targetability in bricks and mortar in physical spaces that you have in the internet for 20 years. What happens is that money that has been spent on the internet will redirect to store, because store is a better place to drive an impression to Jack, because Jack can buy that which is being promoted to him real time, in instant gratification. So there's going to be a leveling, and driven by the idea of computer.
I was going to say, your technology kind of really levels the playing field for bricks and mortar. I mean, it gives them a real leg up. I mean, this is kind of, you know, the whole, you know, what's interesting is you're really kind of driving that digital transformation of the bricks and mortar. I mean, bricks and mortar retailers, events, it's never going away. I mean, whatever. People, I guarantee you, people right now, I guarantee you, in 6 months, there's going to be a massive pent-up demand for people to go shop physically. They want to touch the goods, look at other people. It's just that experience is never going to go away. But the retailers are going to have to evolve. They really need to like step up their game at this point. And this, your thing is a real hot button. And what I find interesting also is who's the, well, first of all, who are the customers? You have, I'm looking here, you mentioned the deployment in Mexico. So you have cities, you have governments, you have retail. Who are your customers?
You would imagine that the customers on the retail side are quite different than the customers on the security side. So on the retail side, our customers tend to be, surprisingly, our customers are brands, not retailers. Brands are troubled by and frustrated by the lack of technology adoption in retail, which is a really interesting commentary. And they know how effective digital can be, so they're convincing retailers to adopt digital technology, and they're paying for that. An example would be our large deployment in a large national coast-to-coast drugstore chain in the US was paid for by a large pharma. The retail didn't participate much at all except for provide the real estate, right? But that'll change as retailers begin to understand that their shelves are now ad tech real estate. They're now discovering an opportunity here to generate more money from existing real estate. So they'll digitize them and they'll sell them to brands.
Okay, so that's yeah, because you know that's pretty interesting. Okay, so shelves, their shelves are ad tech real estate. You know every retail, every grocery store, you know, they're extremely hyper focused on how much sales they get per square inch of shelf space. This product gets this, so and they need to monitor because their margins are tight, so they can monetize every square inch of that real estate. It would be incredible. But my next question is, you know, the big kind of I guess what I think what they were trying to do is to be a leader in retailing was, you know, bricks and mortar is Amazon. You know, they bought Whole Foods, and I think they you know, they're trying to do something like this. Are they a potential customer, or have you been talking to them or anybody like that? Because they understand this.
We're always talking to everybody, but we don't have a clear lane on the e-commerce side. What we're trying to do is make bricks and mortar as competitive as e-commerce. And you know, you do things, I'm getting super shopper geeky at the moment, but things like endless aisle, which is including in bricks and mortar the ability to grab assets and capabilities from the e-commerce side. So you're going to start to see platforms or on-ramps in retail for web assets. For example, this particular Lowe's might not have that drill I'm looking for, but the one that's 5 miles away will, and I'll be able to identify that in the physical store. So there's opportunities to connect the internet assets to the store assets. But this is principally about, if you're familiar with how shopper marketing works, you know that every year around August, September, the big brands go into the big retailers, Safeway, Albertsons, Walmart, and they negotiate slotting. What slotting is the physical presence on the shelf. We have this 1 meter, and that 1 meter is for Coca-Cola, and it's same meter across all Albertsons. Digital is now that. So where stores are understanding that in addition to slotting physical shelf space, they're now adding to that screen space and doubling down on their revenue in the market.
Okay, no, it's fascinating. Okay, so what's the size of the market opportunity that you're going after? Because it's a multiple. It's really kind of multiple markets that you're appealing to. You got the security thing. You have the So what would you say is kind of like what's the size?
So there's two marketplaces, and as you correctly pointed out, we sit sort of astride the two of them, and the underpinning logic or plumbing, if you will, is computer vision. But the size of the security market is today right now $187 billion, compounding growth every year, mostly inspired by this idea of artificial intelligence. Before I talk about the retail market, let me just make a quick comment on why it's growing that fast. The weakness in security is too many cameras, too few operators. This tragedy at the MGM casino happened mostly because 1,600 cameras were monitored by 2 operators. So stuff happens in the camera view they can't possibly see. So the idea of artificial intelligence providing a layer of anomaly detection that just alerts the operator to something noteworthy, it's a no-brainer. And it satisfies what has been the long-standing Achilles heel of security. We have too many cameras out there. That's the one market. The second market is retail, digital retail, which is today about 32 billion, is going to 45 billion in the next 3 years. So significant growth rate in both marketplaces. Again, the underpinning plumbing, computer vision.
Okay, I actually, it's funny, we're kind of talking the broad picture. The main thing that drives your technology is this AI engine. So can you kind of talk about like what you're doing? Because I'm assuming that really is your real competitive advantage, the AI.
Well, it's certainly, I would agree that is our competitive advantage. But another critical component of what makes us differentiate in the marketplace is within our company, we have shopper marketing people. We speak the language of the customers that we're talking to. And this puts us in a different position than most software companies. They're just out there peddling software. So we understand the business of our customer, both in shopper marketing and on the retail side. We've gone out of our way to find people in that ecosystem. I'll hasten to add, on our board of advisors, 2x FBI guys. The reason why 2x FBI guys are on our board of directors is security is ridiculously insular. They're fraternal. They don't trust outsiders, which sounds crazy, but it's absolutely true. So when we understood that this was a serious initiative for us, we went quickly and got people that were part of that club. And by definition, by extension, we become part of that club as well. So in those 2 marketplaces, knowing the language of the market and understanding in a very deeply embedded way how to speak to them is, I think, part of what makes us different.
Okay, actually, it's a very good point, because look, there's companies out there that have great technology, but they just don't know how to sell it. And I think at the end of the day, the key is to be able to get it to the customer, get the sales, and what you said. So that is that's pretty important. So let's talk about what's the competitive landscape like for what you're doing. Like, who else is out there that is kind of touching various areas of this, or is anybody out there that touches all 3, or all 2, whatever?
This is great question, and that's exactly where I was going to go. Our positioning is such that we sit in multiple solution sectors. We have digital display. That's a software as a service module. We power and do everything necessary to drive the digital display. We do data analytics, which is anonymous analytics, number of males, number of females, sentiments, dwell time, those sort of anonymous analytics that don't identify. And then the third piece is the stuff where we identify, where we connect Jack Marks to, this is Jack Marks in the aisle. That's the third component, sitting in the security category. We have competitors in the first component, maybe a couple of hundred, frankly. We have competitors in the second component, 2 or 3. We have competitors in the third component, security, 2 or 3, but nobody, not one company doing all 3. And that makes us unique. I'll give you an example. We're doing a large deployment in Mexico, preparing to do one right now, and it's for a convenience store network, and they're looking for 3 things. Data display to create an advertising marketplace. Digital display to create an advertising marketplace. Data, what's happening on my store in real time, and security. We're the only company on the face of the planet right now that's able to address all of those organically within our own silo. And that makes us unique and puts us into positions where we're able to uniquely compete in places where our competitors couldn't. Okay,
so that's so we got a couple. So that's pretty interesting. Now you have basically 3 different modules that you can deploy. So in other words, it's one system, but somebody can subscribe to one of these. They can, for example, somebody just wants to buy the display.
We have
and
that.
then
Yep.
A month later they say, oh, we got a need for analytics. Then they buy the analytics. And then somebody robs the store. They say, we have a need for security. or whatever, something happens in the country, all of a sudden everybody, the government says, hey, you know what, I mean, look what happened in what's that stadium bombing that they had in was it in Manchester? No, was it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the Adriana Grande concert. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a horrible thing. I mean, and that's a venue which is an ideal customer for what you're doing, because look, they have these massive displays that could, hey, they could sell ads, they could, drive people to buy Coke and popcorn or whatever it is they're buying, and merchandise for the show. And then at the same time, they can identify, hey, does this guy wearing a backpack? That's, why is he wearing, a massive backpack or a coat when it's, 80 degrees outside. So yeah, there's a lot of compelling drivers here. And again, once somebody buys one module, you get that foot in the door and you can sell them the other stuff.
Not to mention, and this is often overlooked, as we scale, we have more and more data collected. That data gets collected from multiple sources, from multiple markets. That data itself has enormous value. For example, what if I were able to tell you the most aggressively sold beverage in Miami is different than the highest velocity sales beverage in St. Louis? And I could give you as a brand that information, and I could break it down by age range, time of day, day of week.
Right. Okay, so that's actually very powerful. So this is like, now you're in the big data space. And what's fascinating about the whole big data thing is, we've never seen this before in like markets. Like the reason these stocks, the reason these stocks like Amazon, all these big data companies they have incredible valuations, is because like every time they get more data, every time a piece of data comes in, that network effect makes the whole system much more valuable, because every time you get data, it makes, like if that this, the Coke sells on a Thursday at 2:00, it all of a sudden so it's as you get more and more data, the company becomes more and more valuable. I guess my question is, at some point, I mean, probably people in the audience are thinking, okay, shit, at some point, are these guys going to be a potential buyout for like a Google? Because Google is going into these initiatives, they're putting up those things in cities, those what are those display, whatever those things are.
That's their sidewalk group, the digital out of home group, exactly in the same category as us. Yeah.
Okay, because essentially, look, once I mean, they're basically in the ad tech business, right? So
always have.
I mean, obviously, if they could see, if you have significant traction, I mean, if you're in a whole bunch of locations, why wouldn't a Google buy you out and leverage the whole thing?
Not just Google, but others. Thankfully, Google hasn't spent much time in the category that we dominate, which is in store. We take stores and we help stores monetize. They have spent a lot of time on what's called place-based media, which is exterior to the store. And those two markets are merging, colliding, frankly. And they're going to be demanding some of the same things. Ways to reach you, Jack, as a consumer when you're not at home are ways that will be highly valued going forward. That's partly mobile, that's partly billboards, other ways of delivering a message to you will be highly valued. And I think the marketplace has a lot of growth going on right there.
Okay, whether it's Google or anybody else, but at the same time, like the big tech companies, it's almost like for them, they're kind of really focused on what they do, and I think that they kind of wait for an opportunity to, once they see somebody has real traction, it's just much cheaper for them to buy an existing operation and then scale that, so because
less risky for sure. Yeah,
so that's kind of an interesting kind of exit. And what the market cap is what right now? How many shares out? What's the market cap?
About 16 million Canadian and about 83 million out.
$16 million.
$16 million Canadian market cap and about 84 million
shares.
Basic IO.
Okay, so
I should point out that about 25 to 30% is still owned by management and directors. So we're proud of that.
Okay, so basically, essentially $13 million US. That doesn't even pay for like lunch at Google on a Wednesday. I mean, it's like, so this is like nothing. It's like I could definitely, this is something where if somebody's they see as a strategic buyer, a strategic tech buyer. These guys have massive value. I mean, this is like something they could pay 100 million, no problem, if they see the value. So. Okay, let's talk about traction. What kind of traction do you have in terms of sales, partnerships? What's happening?
Well, so actually, that's a very important part of how we gauge the success of our company. We take a breath every year and we sort of set aside our objectives for that coming year. And from year to year, those objectives are different. And in the first several years of the company, we're talking about building our first product, landing our first customer, getting repeatable processes in place. And in last year, our objective was to build a significant and compelling channel network. We're not interested as a bunch of people that have sort of been around the block a little bit to build a 30, 40, $50 million lifestyle business. That was not our objective, and it never has been our objective. We wanted to build a compelling company that was valued at $500 million to $1 billion. And the only way to do that is to find partners that can help you scale. You can't possibly organically scale, especially in a fast-paced technology marketplace, yourself by investing the money yourself. I mean, many have tried, many have failed. So the idea is we got to build you got to be rails, they call it in sort of business school. Got to build distribution. And so for us, what we're proudest of, and when we set up those objectives, is we've landed significant channel partners. Sensormatic is the largest retail technology company in the world. They're a division of Johnson Controls. They're in 105 countries. 90% of retailers use some component of what Sensormatic sells today. Sensormatic made a pivot to this business. They were traditionally in the loss prevention business. They're now moving to digital store, which is precisely what we do with all the data, and they have become an OEM partner for us. What does that mean? All 3 of our products are sold through Sensormatic in 105 countries. Now we've got the enormous job of training them up, which is not insignificant, but that company is beginning to generate revenue for us, started last quarter, and is really ramping up for us right now.
Okay, that's tremendous validation. I mean, Sensormatic is, that's the 800-pound gorilla in that retail space. I mean, they're in every retail store.
We targeted them and we landed them. It took us a while, but we got it done. And the others we have, UST Global, a $2 billion systems integrator out of India, and an unnamed company that we'll be naming probably in the next couple of weeks, which is also a $10 billion market cap New York Stock Exchange company, largest display manufacturer in the US. They're now our strategic partner as well. So we're happy that we're putting those kind of partnerships in place because that's our answer to scale. We can continue to build really good software, but until we find a way to accurately and successfully and at scale get it to marketplace, what's the point of doing that? So that's our current challenge at the moment.
Okay, we got some audience questions coming in the live questions. I'm going to jump to. We got a bunch of questions that came in, before the event. I'm going to ask you later, but we got some pretty interesting live questions that just came in. I want to go to those and we'll come back. Warwick is asking, is it accurate to describe this as Google Analytics in physical spaces? If so, that has enormous value.
Yeah, I think we just hit on that point, and that is precisely what we talked about doing when we started this little journey. If we bring to physical spaces the same kind of measurement and analytics that Google has done for 20 years, I mean, it did all right for Google, and I think we've got a good opportunity to do similar things.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. That's like a good. That's a good good way to describe the company. You're sort of like the Google Analytics for bricks and mortar or physical space.
Right.
For the real world, Google Analytics for the physical world. It's Warwick is good marketing. Okay, so we got a question from Jason. I think you may have touched on this. Jason is asking, "Hi Jay, can you expand on this corporate update?" Which I guess he's talking about the news, which says we are developing an advanced camera integration that incorporates artificial intelligence processing directly on the camera.
Yeah, that's a really exciting initiative. We'll be announcing more details probably before the end of the year, but the concept is today, in order to do computer vision, I need core compute, processor, and I need camera. Camera's the collection device. The processor is the processor device. It runs the algorithms. It does the inferences. The machine learning is done on the processor. But what if we put those two together? What if we ran the processing right on the camera? And that is the initiative. And we've got relationships that have been done. We've got prototypes underway. We've got a go-to-market being articulated as we speak. And that's the objective, a game changer for the marketplace. If we deliver it, when we deliver it, it will be the first of its kind in the world. So we're very excited about that. It's a enormously strategic initiative for us.
Okay, so next week we're gonna have you back for to do like the formal presentation with your slides. Well, you can show some of the metrics, all that great stuff. But yeah, so this kind of interview, live chat, if you call it, whatever they call it these days, it's really an opportunity for the audience to kind of get to know you first, get to know your vision for the company, and then have you come back next week and and fill in the more details. So with that said, Jay, can you talk about your background and some of the key members on the team?
Sure. Quickly, me, I mean, like anybody that's, I've been a 25-year software guy, always worked for software companies. I started with 2 large companies. If there's a bunch of Canadians on the phone, you might remember Gandalf. It is not the character from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, although it is also a technology company, which grew to about 700 million in size. I was the youngest VP in the company's history, and I got real good exposure as a young lad as to what to do and what not to do. So that was my first. I embarked upon that. I then worked for Ascend Communications, was recruited from Gandalf to Ascend. Ascend was, I was employee number 60 in Canada, and when I left, there was just over 13,000. It was 3 years. Crazy time. They built the internet. That was a company that built the internet. They started with dial-up modem banks, and they sold out to Lucent for $21 billion in cash. So I got a lot of exposure to high growth at that time. I then went to work for a VC, and I've done subsequent to that 3 or 4 startups, including 1 public company for 10 years. My team comes from the development space. My chief technology officer is ex-Microsoft, is one of the core founders of Microsoft's regional directors board. It's a think tank of the smartest developers in the world. He's still on that board at a 50+ years. He's been around a long time, knows all those guys. We're very close to Microsoft. And of course, I've been enormously grateful for his participation as a co-founder. And then the rest of the team comes from shopper marketing and the creative side of the business, in addition to that, security. So I've kind of fortified the team with other folks that have sort of been there, done that on the shopper marketing side, sort of educate me on what retail looks and feels like, and on the security side as well. What's important about this company, for the first $3.5–4 million, the time it took us to go from minimum viable product to first customer, all of those initial years, 3+ years, we funded ourselves. I wanted to get to a point where I was talking to external sources of capital and saying, we've basically de-risked this thing. We've come to a point where all of that is behind us. We know our market, we know our market model, we know our tech works. We've sort of taken, not all of the risk, but a lot of that initial seed risk goes away because the founders paid for that. And that's part of the reason we still own a big chunk of this company.
Okay, let me jump to a couple of questions that just came in. One of the Jeremy's asking, guys, says there was a large jump in the stock on Monday. There was some crazy action on the market. So he's asking, what was that all about?
Well, I think just constant communication with the marketplace. The company just finished a financing about 60 days ago, and that puts us in a position where everybody outside looking in can see that we're stable and financially solid. And then we start to put some points on the board. And we did a CEO update from the organization. We started to talk about some of the things we have done, including a large deployment coast to coast starting in July of this year, and some of the things we're going to do, which to me are quite exciting. And I think the marketplace is beginning to appreciate and feel the same passion that I have, and the marketplace is responding.
Okay, Jay, I'm going to jump into some of the questions that came in from before the event. So we got here a question. What do you think is the next step to bring the company to the top level and leading the industry? Bruce is asking this.
That's a great question. I have the problem is that I have lots of answers to that, but I'll limit it to 2 or 3. I think when we start to secure significant wins with our key partners, that solidifies the partnership and allows us to communicate to the marketplace the kind of things we're doing together, and look for that dead ahead. Also, some of the innovations that we talked about, I think it was Jason's question related to the camera development. These are meteoric, significant, dramatic changes in the company's prospects, specifically when I'm able to communicate the context of those developments. And I think those are, we spend a lot of our time focused on initiatives like that. And those are the sorts of things that I spend a good piece of my mind strategizing about.
Okay. Barbara's asking, what are the revenue projections for I guess it's just open-ended question. So revenue projections, do you have any?
Yeah, what we're guiding right now, what we publicly talked about is an exit value in bookings of between 8 and 10 million Canadian dollars this year. And that will put us in a position, and just to go back, we really have broken through this year. This has been our inflection year. We have more to prove, no doubt about it. But the first 2 quarters of this year, we did just over $1 million and a bit in US bookings. Sorry to mix the currencies there. I probably shouldn't do that. And then toward the end of the year, even with COVID, even all the difficulties just impacting our core market, which is retail, we didn't really see a lot of cancellations. We didn't see any cancellations in programs. We just saw, 1 quarter delay. So that has had a consequential impact on some of the revenue projections. But despite that, we'll exit this year at 8 to 10 million in bookings.
Okay, and just if you can clarify for people not familiar with that term, I guess it's used like in the SaaS business. So bookings, what does that mean? Yeah,
sure. That's how I break it down. Software as a service. This is how we recognize revenue. We land a contract. The contract is booked. If it's a 3-year contract, we might get 1 year of subscription revenue up front. Typically we do. So that becomes a cash flow item. But it's not billable revenue. The revenue is only billable in 1/36, and this is not our rule. This is the rule about how software as a service is recognized under generally accepted accounting principles. So if it's a 3-year contract, it's 1/36 a month. So my job is to communicate to the marketplace what that billings piece is, which is a real-time revenue recognition.
The pipeline,
which is a leading indicator. Bookings is the pipeline piece because it tells you what you've booked and what you will be recognizing over time. And then the billings is more of the real-time piece. So that's really how it's broken down.
Okay.
The question of talking about both in concert.
Okay. So out of that, so 10 million, if you can do 10 million for 2020 in bookings, let's just use that top. How much of that would actually be recognized as revenue?
It's difficult to say, but the objective right now is between 3 to 5 million of that.
Okay.
But what more importantly is if your exit value in 2020 is 8 to 10 million, that sets you up.
Yeah.
2021, which is going to be far more significant. And what we're currently saying is 16 to 20 million. If we're a SaaS company and we get SaaS valuations, that'll tell you that we've got a long way to go in terms of growth of enterprise value.
Yeah, because look, the valuations right now in the market and the SaaS is 10x plus 10x revenue. So that could be that could give you I don't know 150 million market value at the low end in about 9 months if you keep that trajectory. So again, so that's that's why you're on the program here, because again, we're looking for that 10 bagger. If you can go from 16 million market cap currently to 150 million, that's going to be good. Okay, so let's go to the next question here that came in. I'm not sure if I understand this question. Does VSBLTY join any fair event in the future? Fair event? Is that like an industry thing? Fair?
I've never heard that term before.
Let's see here.
Hopefully all events we participate are fair.
Okay, so we got a question here. Are there any true competitors for VSBLTY, and are your revenue projections still attainable for year end? This is being asked by Hubert.
Well, I think I just gave the estimates, and at this point, although we are directly impacted about the cadence, we're directly impacted by the cadence not only of our channels, but on the adoption. So we may land a customer, and for whatever reason, they may not deploy at the pace that they told us they would deploy. This hasn't been an issue for us so far, but it does sit out there as a possible thing you gotta keep pay attention to. But no, I don't think that there's any reason to sort of take our foot off the gas in terms of messaging our guidance at the moment. And to the competitive question, I think we mentioned that before about the 3 various product suites that we sit in and our competitive landscape in each of them. So I think we covered that.
Okay, so Jason is asking a follow-up question. Can you expand on the kiosk company partnership announcement?
Yeah, and there'll be more. That was our first, actually it was our second one technically. We signed a deal with Connect Media, which is the guys, we've all seen them. Back when we traveled, there was you can see these kiosks all over the US. They have 2,200 airports, and they're what they call totems, and they give you information when you enter TSA about what lane to go in, and sometimes they'll show promotional messaging and that sort of thing. So we're deploying with them right now data collection. We're doing audience measurement. So queue line management, sentiment analysis, all the things that you can imagine. And that's just now deploying this fall, and that's with Connect Media. That's technically a kiosk company. The one we announced just last week was with Kiosk Information Systems. They're a wholly owned subsidiary of Posiflex out of Taipei, Taiwan. Posiflex is a very large company. Kiosks themselves are the third largest manufacturer of kiosks in the world, building kiosks for companies like Lenovo, IBM, etc. And that's a very integrated and complementary relationship where we build our thermal detection software, our facial recognition software, and our access control software into their product. The rough analogy I give, because I can't think of a better one, is it's like we build catalytic converters, and we put our catalytic converters in Fiat, Chrysler, Mercedes, Porsche, etc. And so there'll be more kiosk information systems type companies. We've got a few in the queue right now, but our win is embedding our SaaS software directly in the engine of that kiosk. So when they sell one, they sell one of ours.
Okay, no, it's very interesting here. Okay, so Jeremy's asking any government contracts forthcoming?
It's a great question. We've got a big one we're pursuing right now, and I say that in complete transparency. I'm not a guy that likes to do government business because they take forever, and you require contract vehicles sometimes, and it's complicated and bureaucratic. But having said that, one of the largest deals in our pipeline right now is a government deal where we've been single sourced. So single source is the unicorn in the government space. It's hard to get, but we got one, and we're expecting that will turn into revenue in Q4. I don't want to guess as to the size of that revenue at the moment. I mean, I do have a guess, but I'm not going to share that guess. And that has been our first exposure to government business in the US. But having said that, the Mexico deal, which is a 40,000 camera deal over 3 years, our end customer, we have an integrator in the middle, but our end customer is governments. So but the other deal I'm talking about is our first domestic deal, although we have done other deals in the security side of the business with foreign governments.
Oh, domestic, US or Canada?
US, sorry.
US, okay. Because the company is actually based in the US, right? I mean, you're based in Philadelphia.
I physically myself, I'm in Vancouver, but 100% of the staff of the company, besides me, are in the US. And I wouldn't be in Canada if it weren't for, Trump not letting me in.
Yeah, so the company kind of straddles, and you're in the US, the Canadian market. Okay, so Jay, what's your goal? What's your vision for VSBY looking, let's say 2-3 years out? What is the company going to look like, assuming everything, goes right?
Well, I mean, if anyone understands my lineage and my pedigree, I do think of technology as sort of a means to an end, and we are on the path to exit. I'm making no bones about it. It's a 3 to 5 year exit, and our exit partner is probably visible to us right now. So when we execute with these channels, not just the ones I've talked about, but those that are just about to be announced, they will take a position on us, because at some point in time, we'll start to consume more of their SaaS revenue than they want us to. And it'll be easier for them to take a strategic investment in us as a first step and potentially take us out as a second step. Some of those conversations have even occurred already, but we're just not ready to be taken out at $16 million market cap, even though, there's been a little bit of pressure in that regard. But we're here for a 10 bag, 20 bag exit, and the entire team is. And just in the last round of our investment, the last round we did that I mentioned earlier in the conversation, our entire management team participated. So that'll tell you that even at these valuations, we think it's a bargain, and we're here for a bigger play.
Okay.
So the short answer is we're looking to exit in the 3 to 5 range.
Okay. So ultimately, there's going to be there's going to be an exit at some point at a hopefully a healthy evaluation.
Yes.
Jay, what's looking out over the next, let's call it 3 to 6 months? What kind of news flow can investors look forward to? What kind of milestones you have coming up?
So we've got participation in significant incubators sponsored by large property companies. I'm just trying to be slightly cryptic here. That's ahead of us, dead ahead of us. We got additional work being done in the kiosk category, as I mentioned or referred to earlier. We've got initiatives with large semiconductor companies that are very, very tight to us, and we're beginning to talk more and message more about what we're doing with them. And it's highly collaborative, it's highly strategic. And we've got a couple of very large deployments in Latin America that we expect to get past the finish line and into a disclosure category or space in the month of November. So we have a very, very robust fourth quarter in front of us, and we expect that once we get that news out, then the fact that we're starting to put some points on the board will be recognized, and we're starting to get some appreciation in our value.
Okay, so Jay, the final question, which is our favorite question here at the Wall Street Reporter in these interviews, is in your opinion, what are the top 3 reasons why investors should consider your stock today?
I feel like I'm a little bit redundant here, but I'll go through them really quickly. We do have 3. Number 1, we sit astride 2 significant marketplaces, both 10 billion plus, 100 billion size and growth rate that is meteoric over the next 3 years, security and retail. Number 2, the partnerships are the rails to the marketplace. Our go-to-market is bolstered by Sensormatic, a large unnamed but will be named soon display manufacturer, UST Global, and of course, as I may not have mentioned in this call so far, a very tight working relationship with Intel, although I probably referred to it. And then the third thing is we're in inflection right now. If you look at the company's historical performance financially, we did more this year, by orders of magnitude, than we did last year. And our projections into next year are equally, or this year and into next year are equally aggressive. Those are 3 reasons: disruption, partnerships, and inflection.
Okay, Jay, you know what? I got one last question, actually. We got an audience question, a final question, which is actually pretty interesting. Jeremy's asking, can you talk about your elevated body temp and COVID detection?
Sure. That is the nature of our deal with Kiosk Information Systems out of Colorado. What we have built, it's their brand, but they call it Kiosk Entry. Entry is a product that goes in the commercial lobby of a building. COVID is bringing us brand new protocols, and we had an enormous beneficiary. We're a beneficiary of COVID in many ways, even though it seems odd to say. But the silver lining for us in COVID was many of the problems brought about by COVID and the protocols that were established to bring people back to work, commercial building, merchant manufacturing, etc. These were all computer vision problems. We're a computer vision company. So for us, the ability for building thermal detection, a kiosk that can detect your temperature at entrance to a building, correlate that temperature to your identity, because it's facial recognition. We now can connect you to, yes, you're allowed to be in that building, or no, you're a stranger and you're running a fever, so you represent a risk to the people in that building. All of that creating an audit trail for the purposes of protocol adherence and that sort of thing is enormously valuable in a commercial building. So our product being, as an example, our product that's created between us and Kiosk does thermal detection, facial recognition, and access control. It's everything you need to open up a commercial building again, and gives you the kind of visibility you need for audit trails and for accounting of people and movements of persons within a physical space. That can be applied to venues, be applied to manufacturing facilities. In particular, the deals we're pursuing have a lot to do with commercial buildings and the new way we're going to be accessing commercial buildings.
Okay, that was a good question, Jay. Jeremy, I'm glad you asked that. Jay, on that note, I want to thank you, and we look forward to having you back next week, where actually you're going to make your formal debut presentation. on our Discovery Day live stream. So everybody who's watching, stay tuned. You'll get an email invite. Jay, we'll see you next week, and thank you again.
Thank you.